And we're live. It is Wednesday, March 17th, the year of our Lord 2025. It is 8 o'clock a.m. I am not abandoned today by all co-hosts. Thanks much to John Hawkinson for his impromptu performance extraordinaire yesterday, and shame on all of the rest of you for not clicking that button that relieved him of the obligation of carrying the entire day. That is not the way we're supposed to behave. You know who you are. If you were on the show live yesterday and you said, nah, I think John Hawkinson can carry this one by himself. God doesn't give him more than he can handle. The problem is you guys. So next time, John and I have a deal that he is not coming on until somebody else does it first. And I am gonna like dangle out there in the wind, like somebody hanged from the gallows until one of you steps up. Now, I have two drive-by uh, uh, praise things to say today, and none of it is for the John Hawkinson, non-John Hawkinson members of the Greek chorus today. The first is an update on our friends at Makeup Addict, who, as you know, I did a little
I
drive.
give you a contract? Do you have a contract?
No, 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 no. And I'm not. Look. I
Have a choice.
don't want to run afoul of FARA. I don't want to have to register as a lobbyist. I'm not, taking money or direction from a foreign principal like Makeup Addict. I'm just talking about Canadian friends. Somebody suggested I do an avocado toast video using Mexican avocados. That is going to happen.
No, you can do a mask, an avocado mask.
It's going to be, that's a great idea. I'm
I have
totally
all
doing,
the great ideas, just for the record. The makeup thing, that was my idea, Canadian makeup. I
uh,
have all the great ideas,
I
just
thought
so
that
you
was
know.
Alicia's idea. Oh,
No.
she,
Alicia was all about buying the products, but it was my idea to
to
do
do
a get
Canadian
ready for
makeup.
me with
Okay.
Canadian makeup.
All right. So I got a note yesterday from the folks at Makeup Addict.
Wow.
They have shipped my order. They said there's a special little present in there. So I am now not just an influencer, but an influencer with a relationship with a particular brand. I can only imagine the internal conversations at Makeup Addict. They're like, wait, who is this guy? He doesn't seem like the usual gay, fake get ready with me video guy. But like they put it on their story
Oh,
on
really?
yeah, it was the only thing on their Instagram story yesterday. It probably still is for all I know. And they sent me a very sweet note. And so we are all in on makeupaddict.ca.
I'm gonna
I'm
war makeup. I mean,
Yeah, and I told them I'm doing a whole bunch of makeup videos, get ready with me videos, for the future, commentary on U.S. politics, and I would, of course, use only their products. So I have now an influencer deal with a makeup brand.
that's amazing.
I have fucking arrived.
I know you
Sorry,
have.
John
Let
Roush.
me. I have two questions.
Yeah.
First of all, the video was epic, and Cactus will eventually speak. But at
Yeah,
first,
no, sometimes we defer gratification for
okay.
Cactus.
Anyway, two comments on the script, which was outstanding. My question is, first of all, was Anna Bauer involved because you had an exquisite Taylor Swift lyric in there? I don't know if you
Anna
realize it.
Bauer was not involved in the scripting in any way.
Wow. Okay. Well, where did you get Who did the Taylor Swift? I know you
but
didn't get it yourself.
but the gist of your question is certainly correct. I wouldn't know a smoky eye if I choked
No,
on
no,
it.
it's a cat eye sharp enough to kill a man.
No, 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 I know. But there was a smoky eye
Okay.
reference, and the only thing I added to those makeup discussion sections was the references to Canadian geography. Um, but no, they were all written by the estimable Catherine Pompilio, who
I
is the
mean,
producer and
well done.
editor of the Get Ready With
I
Me
mean, they're
videos.
all so well done. Kudos to her. Also, I enjoyed the dewy thing. You know, that is like a whole thing, like being dewy. In fact, I have been on, I don't wear a lot of makeup, but for some reason, I have been seized with the idea of looking dewy. I don't know, like shine.
It's
I don't
because the
know why.
word is nice.
Yeah, it just sounds like you're fresh and like
Right.
young
And
looking, which is, not me anymore. And so I have like most of the makeup products I have bought have been purchased with claims of dewiness, and I've just decided that I'm just fundamentally not dewy.
well, so I have a near religious principle that I absolutely never comment on female appearances in any way.
That's a
So
good principle.
I'm not going to respond
Don't
to
comment.
anything you just said about,
Right.
but I do uh, uh, find the word dewy somewhat objectionable in somewhat the same way that people find the word moist objectionable.
Yeah, I
And
see that.
so, anyway, to our friends at Makeup Addict, we can make this a regular. We're going to do a whole string of videos, and we're going to have anti-tariff references in all of them. There is one makeup item I forgot to order in my pro-Canadian zeal, which is I um, uh, 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 I I don't even know what to call it in blue and yellow because I'm going to
Oh,
need to be
eyeshadow.
I
eyeshadow. Yeah,
Eyeshadow, yeah.
going to need to be supportive of Ukraine in
That's
these
right. You
videos.
could do a whole like blue and then yellow on the bottom.
Well,
That would be
I
amazing.
did blue and yellow in the first video.
Oh, okay.
The
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah. So look, I'm gonna make another order. The whole thing is gonna be epic. And
Okay.
yeah, all props to Catherine Pompilio who wrote the script.
And
So,
to Holly for having the idea to
and
begin
to
with.
Holly for having the idea, and to Alicia for bringing our attention to the good folks at Makeup Addict, who must be thinking now, uh, this is really weird. It's
Maybe
not
the
what we
cactus
signed
needs to do
up
a
for, but all right.
maybe
Before
the
we get
cactus
to
should
you,
do a
Cactus,
makeover.
we've
We could
got the second. We're still in the monologue here.
oh, well,
Um,
the cactus is looking dewy, don't you think?
the cactus is looking dewy, and the snowman is, a mysterious figure. All right. So, second issue, Ruth Marcus. Um, wrote my column about Ruth Marcus this morning, and I have a correction. Um, and this was brought to my attention by none other than Ruth Marcus herself, who wrote to me this morning, or she wrote last night, but I didn't see it till this morning, that there's actually a factual error in the column, uh, which is where I say up top that we worked very closely together. We didn't always get along. We disagreed about a bunch of stuff. And she wrote me a very nice note this morning that said, actually, I don't think that's true. I think we did always get along, and we disagreed very passionately and very pleasantly. And she slips in that she was right about the things that we disagreed about, which I think 20 years later shows the kind of urgency and importance that we were that we're all going for, but that we actually did always get along. And I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking, that's true. We never didn't get along, and so consider this my sort of correction to the column, because I think there were probably times where I wanted to grab her around the neck and squeeze. But we always got along. And so, um, so that's it. That's the 10-minute monologue today. Two drive-bys about appreciations of products and quality humans, and a little bit of correction. Uh, Cactus.
Sorry, you have to give me some warning here.
No. The setup is part of the vibe.
Cactus is malfunctioning.
We're watching Dog Shirt TV, an effing revolution in morning television.
You are watching Dog Shirt TV, and it is an effing revolution in morning television. And one of the revolutionary features, and there are many, is that we're going to have these impromptu, appreciations of people who, maybe yesterday we'd never thought about, like Makeup Addict. And we're going to do corrections of columns when we say we didn't get along with people, that actually what we mean is we aspired to strangle them sometimes. But another one of the revolutionary features is that occasionally our occasionally our co-hosts get stranded on trains, not for minutes, not for hours,
And before she tells the story, which is amazing, I just have to explain what I'm going to be doing on mute in the background, and that is, and I will tell more of the story. I am overwhelmed painting Ukraine flag paintings for a fundraiser that has really gotten out of control, and I will be painting Ukraine flag paintings till the day I die at this point. So that's what I'm going to be doing with my hands while Ev is speaking. Don't
Okay, so turn the camera to your hands, and
Yes.
what we're going to do is we're going to pin this like this so that we can watch you work and not make you self-conscious at all while Ev tells
Well,
her
it's
story.
basically just decoupage at this point. See, this is, and then you paint over it, and then like you can see on my Blue Sky, my cover is what it looks like when it's finished. And I'm selling them. The proceeds go to Ukraine, and I have way more orders than I can fill in my lifetime. And so thank you to everyone. And yeah, I'm going to be working on this.
Super
It looks
cool.
super nice.
Yeah, excellent. And just turn the camera down. Yeah, there we go. And another one of the revolutionary features, and there are many, is that occasionally on an impromptu basis, you get to watch the creation of Ukrainian flag art by the estimable Holly Fletcher. So, Ev.
Yep.
Let's start this story. I'm just going to interview you about it.
Go ahead.
Let's start this story with why you went to Calgary in the first place and your triumph there.
Oh yeah, I was in Calgary for a conference, an amazing conference actually, hosted by Higher Education Associates Strategy, an organization that does shit about higher education, and it's great. It was the first conference on AI that they were hosting, and it was amazing because they managed to bring together two groups of people that normally don't get in the same rooms. That is to say, like people that are very critical of AI, and like university administrators and professors who are dealing with all of this and struggle with all of this on the one hand, and the other hand, like the Turnitin of this world and all of those sellers of AI who sell those products that are somewhat I heard one guy from a conference was like, we're gonna revolutionize study abroad. You no longer have to actually go abroad. We'll do like all of this through AI. So this was kind of two very different set of people all in the same room, which gave rise to great debate. So I was there for that.
Super cool. And how did you get there?
I got there through a plane, a normal flight from Montreal to Calgary.
And when you got on the plane, what did you notice about your driver's license?
Oh, nothing. I I got on the plane. I was taking the subway, and at some point I was like, oh shit, I don't have my passport. Because it was an internal flight, so I didn't need it, but I normally always travel with it because, like, okay, I kind of made an habit of like, okay, I'm taking the plane, I'm having my passport, so I'm gonna be able to fly. So I noticed that I don't have my passport, and like I opened my bags, and okay, fine, I got my driver license, that's fine. I'm gonna be able to fly. That's right.
So you get on the plane and you show your ID, your driver's license, and what do the people at the airport, the gate attendants, notice about your driver's license?
Nothing. Like, it's fine. They take my ID. It's fine. I get on the plane.
And did you know that Calgary was actually a new form of lobster trap?
I
Or
didn't.
like Roach Motel, that you can go to Calgary, but you can't leave?
No, 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 no.
All right. So you do your speech, Calgary, and you kind of fall in love with Calgary.
Yeah, well, I half jokingly fell in love with Calgary. I have this kind of shtick of like being a Quebecer. The rest of Canada is always not. Nobody thinks of the rest of Canada as nice. Maybe like BC is cool, but the rest of it is like ew. So I've kind of have this shtick of really overhyping the rest of Canada. So when I get into Calgary, it's
Because
actually
you're like the only person who's ever overhyped Saskatchewan.
exactly. So it's somewhat sarcastic, but Calgary is truly a great city. The wokest petroleum state ever. Free public transportation, public arts everywhere, nice architecture. The library is amazing. So I'm kind of hyping the city, and I like it.
And
Then,
when did you notice that your driver's license was expired?
so I get to the airport.
So
I I'm
you're getting ready to fly home.
Yep, exactly. And I'm flying with a super low cost company. Like super, super, super low cost. And it requires and I'm not checking any bags. And the company is so low cost that it even charges you for carry on. And so you just can have a personal item. And if you have more than a personal item, you have to purchase a bag. And to make sure that nobody cheats, they are the one who are gonna check you in. So I get to the counter and I bring my driver license to the counter, and they check my bag and stuff, and they start checking me out, and they kind of have my ID in their hands, and they do all sorts of weird faces and like, and then they tell me like, oh, it's expired. It's like, oh wow, fuck, man, what I'm gonna do? And I have my, I'm kind of known to be messy and not always having my cards with me. It's kind of a
Yeah,
known
so
fact. So
people don't know this about Ev on the show, but Ev is one of the most polished, totally disorganized people I have ever met. And when she texted me that she was stuck in Calgary because her driver's license was expired, I was completely unsurprised. This is the only question in my mind is this a joke of Ev making fun of Ev, or is this real? But like, you know, don't don't confuse the polished, well-spoken person um, in front of you with somebody who's organized.
yeah, no, I mean, everyone I talked to was like, "Oh my God, what a surprise! You forgot your driver license. You didn't have your cards." So like, it was absolutely unsurprising. But the thing is that I know that I kind of have this sort of problem, so I always carry all my. I have pictures of all my IDs somewhere hidden on my phone. So I was like, okay, so here you have my passport. It's valid. I have like taken it from all sorts of angles. It's clear. I have my actual driver's license that is not expired, which looks exactly the same, but for the expiration date. I have my health card. I have everything. Like you can see, everything is fine. I am me. And it didn't.
They didn't buy it.
No, it wasn't convincing to them. And eventually, John Hodgson, a years old expired lad. Yeah, 5 years old. It expired in 2020. But it looks exactly the same because it was renewed during the pandemic, so the pictures are the same. So it really, really looks identical.
Okay, so now you are stuck in Calgary and you can't get on an airplane home. Did you think about just staying there?
No.
Okay.
No, I overhyped it, but like for 2 days. I don't.
Right, you didn't aspire to, you weren't like, oh, fate, you know. All right, so next question. Uber. Did you think of just Ubering back to Montreal?
No. I thought of like, so first of all, they told me maybe you can go to the police station because there are provisions in the regulation that you can go without anything if you have proof that you were like your stuff was stolen. So they were like, oh, you can go to the police station and get a report, and it can work. So I get to the police station and have a chat with the policeman, which were very nice. And the guy had worked previously at the airport, and he says like, no, you don't have anything. They are kind of you can't. I can't. Like the only thing that the police report can do for you is if you were like in a home in violence situation, your husband was kind of threatening you and had like ripped up your papers, and you cannot fly away. That we can do something. Otherwise, for the stolen material, you'd have to have someone.
So you actually were that day the only person in Calgary who needed some domestic violence. You were like, wait, why can't somebody mistreat me so that I can get a temporary license from the Calgary police and fly home?
Yeah, exactly. We had a good chat about like, again, bringing Canada together and like breaking down barriers and having a database, a national database where it could be easier to have our things. So I got a Canadian discussion with the policeman in Calgary, but
Right, which
I didn't
doesn't help
manage
you
to
get home.
No.
Okay, so next question. Does a train go from Calgary to Montreal?
No, if it was the case, I would have taken it back and forth. I would have made a round trip Calgary-Montreal because I always kind of wanted to do this. But Calgary being the petro state that it is, it doesn't have trains.
Right, because they're not enough. There's not enough carbon emissions.
Right. We like to like, and it's the reason why is the lobby for the two airports are lobbying heavily against train transportation.
All right, so what do you have to do if you have no driver's license to get from Calgary to Montreal, and you're not going to hitchhike and you're not going to Uber?
Yeah, at some point I truly thought about hitchhiking because I wasn't sure if I could even get on a train because you also need an ID to get on the train. So I took the bus from Calgary to Edmonton.
And how long is it? Like, distances are really long in Western Canada. This is all within the same province, but if you look at a map, it actually looks like pretty far. How long does it take a bus from Calgary to Edmonton?
I'm not exactly sure because I had slept in the airport the previous night, so I was kind of groggy a bit. But I think it's something like 3 hours.
Okay, so not that bad.
No.
All right, so And then you try to get on a train in Edmonton, and what happens?
Well, I get in, but it's a 3-ish for 3 nights and several hours trip train. So I got into a long journey across Canada.
And yeah, give us the highlights. What was the? I mean, it's a big country.
It's a huge country. It's a huge country.
That's what I want you guys all to take away from this.
Uninvadably
Canada,
huge.
Big.
Big.
Uninvadably big. Yeah.
And snowy at times. So yeah, it's so I got it.
Snow in Canada?
Lots of it. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. And remember, it's tough to go outside to protest in March for you guys. So don't get into the idea that you can invade our country when it's very cold.
It's very cold, there's snow, and it's big.
Yeah, big, snow, cold, Waterloo.
Right.
So yeah, I got into the train at the saddest point. The train station in Edmonton is minuscule, right into the middle of a RV parking. It's kind of rednecky, and you just kind of you had the BC, the Rockies, Jasper, all of this nice scenery, and then you get into Edmonton, and for one day it's the prairies, which people are treating as very boring. I think it's not the worst part of the whole trip. I think the worst part is the western part of Ontario, where is a completely dead zone, no service at all for I think 1 day, no cell service at all, and trees. And in the eastern part of Ontario, you start having like rivers and lakes and trees and snow, and landscapes are great. But between Winnipeg and like Sudbury, no cell service, nothing to see.
So really important question from the estimable Laura Donna.
Yep.
What is the snack situation like on transcontinental Canadian trains over 3 days?
So I knew that I didn't want to like eat only trains food. So when I got into Edmonton, I Uber eated some grocery and I brought some snacks, which got me through the 2 first days. Otherwise, you have like microwaved dish that you can purchase. But it's not spectacular.
It's not spectacular. All right, that's
well. If you take, I think that if you take a room,
uninvadably big, snowy, cold, and the snacks are not spectacular.
But if the thing is that I took a 4-day train ride seated. If you take a roomette, I think they are like the meals are better and like they are paid for and stuff. But I traveled the cheap way, so to speak, even though I wouldn't call it cheap. But it was the less expensive one.
All right.
If you are more bougie, you can get better food, I guess.
So 2 more questions.
Yep.
Number 1, how did you get that super cool picture of the Ukrainian flag out your window that we used on Dog Shirt Daily yesterday?
Well, so I texted you a picture of a actual Ukrainian flag. Oh fuck the thumbs up, yes, still. I texted you a picture
almost like artificial intelligence isn't that intelligent, Eve.
No, Eve.
Ev.
Sorry, I had to call you on it.
Good for you.
I actually don't mind at all. So I text you an actual picture of an actual Ukrainian flags flying into the prairies because there are a lot of it. Because as you mentioned in Dog Shirt Daily, I think there's like something like 13% of the Albertan population that is Ukrainian.
Yeah, it's actually The Saskatchewan population.
Saskatchewan. Oh yeah, sorry, I
So
wasn't. Yeah, I was in
I had
Saskatoon.
a student once at in the law school class that I teach, whose mother was from Saskatchewan and
Just
was
like Elon's.
native Ukrainian speaking, though she was third generation,
Interesting.
which I thought was really, really interesting.
Interesting. So I got a picture of that flag, and you told me, well, no, it can't be like this is not usable. But the Ukrainian flag is made out of like wheat and blue sky. So the reason why sunflowers, which looks like wheat. So the prairies are wheat and canolas and stuff. So take a picture of like the landscape, and that could be a good evening picture. So I took it as I was working on my computer in like the little Art Deco kitchen. I saw the landscape that was nice, and I pictured it. And this is it. I don't have much to say other than blue sky, wheat, granola, and stuff. But yeah, that's it.
So, just for those who don't know, the Ukrainian flag actually is this scene, except it's not supposed to be in the winter with snow. It is blue on top for the sky, yellow on the bottom for the sunflower fields. So, what Ev was taking a picture here, and of course, the landscape is very flat. And so, what Ev was taking a picture here of is something remarkably close to the actual Ukrainian flag,
which Holly is painting.
To make it all very symmetrical in this completely unscripted show. All right, Ev, one more question, and then we are going to wrap this segment. How'd you like it? 4 days sitting up on a train. What'd you do all day, and was it fun?
I loved it, actually. I think I would always, if it wasn't from the price, which is, and like, so it's very hard to get to expense such a trip because it's more expensive and way longer. So I don't think anyone at finance would say, "Oh yeah, that's a good idea, great idea to do that." But otherwise, it is the best way to kind of unwind after a conference. I always kind of give myself a day off after a conference because, like, oh yeah, you traveled, you gotta relax, and once you give yourself that day off, it's kind of easier to have another, and like, oh, I'm so tired. But when you're on the train, you are kind of forced to just think about what happened, and like you can start working because it's boring anyway. So it's kind of really a good way to transition from conference to after. It's also a great way to see the country, and I mean, it's very topical right now to think about Canada and what it means to be Canadian.
Oh, no, keep talking.
Yeah, it's really topical to like think about Canada and what it means to have such a wide, large country with so many different landscape and people and population. And actually, it's also a good way to get to know people. I met one lady on the train that lived the exact same experience that I had. She was also denied access to her flight for the exact same reason, because her ID was expired. And we had a long chat together, and we exchanged about each of like, she was from Ontario and I'm from Quebec, and we talked about this. And at some point, and she ended up knitting me a dishcloth. So like, it's creating bonding experiences between people who have otherwise never talked to each other. She was a farmer in rural Ontario, and it's one interesting show. Like, when you so when people ask me what I do for a living, always, as you know, it's always an awkward question for me, but I never really know.
I'm part slumlord. I'm part graduate student. I hack large language models. What do you do?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
like,
it's a little
oh, I'm
awkward.
doing a PhD in what law? Are you a lawyer? Yes. Okay, so it kind of always creates distance between you. So you're a lawyer and a PhD student. People think, oh, you're probably super educated and like, oh, you're impressive, which I am most definitely not. But like, it creates distance between people. And she was like, oh, I'm just a farmer, and I also teach in elementary school. And she was kind of, I don't know how to say it, but like, she'd feel like I would look down upon her, which is definitely not the case. And I was actually super interested in having conversations about how things are going for her in her classroom and stuff. So two kinds of people who would never talk to each other and realize that they're not so far apart, even though like on paper they might be.
Super cool. So we are pro. So are you going to junk your driver's license entirely and only take trains now because you can't get on airplanes? What's the lesson of this story for you? I know the
Uh,
answer to this question without even
yeah.
asking. I know it better than you do.
I don't know. Well, I was talking on the phone with my mother when I kind of explained to her, and she was like, "Well, I guess it's gonna teach you a lesson." And but there was a long silence, and both of us like, "No, it won't."
Yeah. So to Ev's mother, the lesson of this for Ev is Ev blunders her way into good things over and over and over again. And, you know, she does what conventionally one thinks of as stupid stuff and has a great time. And that's the lesson.
It is.
All right, so you are back in Montreal. And what are you blundering your way into now?
Yeah. What time is it? I have to, because I'm also a PhD student. I have to go to a class at 9, so but I still have time. And then tomorrow I'm trading. No, I think I'm gonna take the car. I'm driving to Quebec City to give another talk, which hopefully I won't get stranded in Quebec City, though
Yeah,
it's easier for
if
me.
you're gonna drive, take your actual driver's license.
No, I'm not the one driving. But I'm known to have this sort of problem with cars too.
All right. Ev, welcome back.
Thank you.
May all your travel misadventures be this amusing. And Holly, you have some agenda items.
Yes. Well, first of all, I was going to elaborate a bit more on all these paintings. So
Excellent.
So I started doing this thing. Maybe those that follow me on social media have noticed. I don't know when I started it. Maybe 2 weeks ago. I don't know. Where like I've just everybody and myself, especially because my brain is not good at multitasking. But I hear a lot of people say they feel overwhelmed by everything that's going on, right? So I just sort of made a deal with myself that, there's no need to be overwhelmed by everything. Just, do one thing every day to try to make this world a little better in some way. And maybe you don't know how it would do that. That's fine. Just that speaks to the moment or whatever. And I've been posting every day, like, don't be overwhelmed, just do one thing. And then I list like what I'm doing that day. So some days are easy because there's a protest, there's something on the schedule. Although it's kind of been hard to locate and hear about the protests. Friday, I went to one small protest for PEPFAR, and then people were passing us. The organizers didn't know that there was actually a massive protest on the mall for science. So I went to both of those. So sometimes it's hard to hear about these things. Today I have a faith leaders vigil at the Senate Park, so I'm going to go to that. Anyway, so some days easy, but some days I'm kind of like, okay. The sort of default is I just write my congressional delegation yet again. That's kind of the default. Although I consider like checking in with a friend, seeing if there's anything they need. I spoke with one of my best friends yesterday. She's having some health issues. So I considered that kind of, the one thing on some days. But one day I had a brilliant idea that I had made one of these paintings. And again, you can see the finished product, which looks different than this, it's my cover art for my Blue Sky, if you're on there, or it's on Threads.
The aptly named Blue Sky.
Yeah, it is. And and I have an Etsy shop, so it's on there. So I made the original one for our friends Tatiana and Sergey, who are we sponsored to come here last year, and anyway, they're in some legal uncertainty now with everything that's going on. So I had this brilliant kind of spur of the moment idea that, oh, you know what, I'll start selling these paintings, and instead of, any profit, which the margins are like to make one of these with shipping is like $10. And then I usually sell things for like $30. So it's a very, I don't make much money anyway, but it's at least a little something and it keeps me motivated to keep working on my art. So I thought, well, I'll list this for $40, and then the margin will be $30, and I'll put a thing on the listing that it all goes to Ukraine. So $30 per painting goes to Ukraine. And I thought, maybe I'll get like 6 or some orders or whatever. So now I have 22 orders, which is, anyway, I have a few weeks to do it. I think next time what I will do is, after I finish this tranche, before I advertise again, like I will make some ahead of time and sell what I've already made, like that I have 6 left to sell, and then when that's it, instead of like made to order or whatever. So anyway, so but the good news is, if I don't have a one thing on a given day, I'm painting Ukraine flags for charity like every single day.
That's pretty awesome. And that does give you, so first of all.
So $30 times 22, Ev, you do math, right? How many is?
I don't.
It's over $600. I think that's like close to $700. So that's pretty good.
And you should raise the price, because
we'll see.
Because that's the other way
to
reduce the volume.
Oh yeah, that's my husband lectured me. I had raised the price on all of my paintings for a while because I didn't want to paint so much anymore.
Well, so what you want to do is raise the price to the profit maximizing point, which in this case, the profit maximizing point is the point that maximizes revenue for whatever Ukraine charity and that will A, reduce your workload, B, it'll increase the amount of charity money that you're giving.
Look at this.
And my guess is the maximization point is probably more like $100.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. But I'm not sure. I have seen these paintings in person because I have one. And I've also seen the one at Mona's house and some of the ones at your house. So I am aware of this, and I do think you could sell them for a lot more. All right. I want to amplify.
I'm a very amateur artist.
But that's okay. First of all, they're very good.
Yeah, thank you.
So I want to amplify a point that Holly made at the beginning, which is every day doing something. I have been trying to come up with a list of the key obligations of this time for us all. What are the 5 or 8 fundamental obligations? One of them is the obligation of engagement. And I don't know, we're not all going to quit our jobs and go to protests and, be engaged full time like Holly has. And we're not all going to design our jobs to be a full-time engagement like I do. But it seems to me that we all do have an obligation to be engaged. If we want things to get better, we have an obligation to think about making things better as a part of what we do. And so I actually think Holly's formula of every day doing something doesn't have to be a big deal, doesn't have to be, but pulls you away from, and as the guy who started the Euromaidan in Ukraine put it, in the original Facebook post that called people out to the Maidan, likes don't count, right? So the one thing that doesn't count is sharing something on Facebook, or now originating the thing that other people share on Facebook, that counts, right? Starting a fundraiser, or but it has to be a little bit more kinetic than doom scrolling. It has to break through the platform somehow. And like, I think
Well,
that.
I will say, just to jump in, sorry to interrupt you, but just to jump in on that,
Oh, always interrupt.
for some people, maybe they're homebound or they're not in good health or whatever. And, in that case, supporting people like supporting Lawfare or people, all of my content on my Substack is pretty much free. We have a monthly meeting that you have to be paid subscriber, but whoever wants to come, I just comp them. So everything's free, but then I have people, like incredibly generous people who have paid subscriptions just to support what I'm doing. And then that also motivates me. It's like, oh no, people are looking for me to actually be doing something,
Right.
like writing, but also, so there's other ways you can do if you're not like, if you're not able to do things.
That is exactly correct. And I don't mean, there are people for whom the platform is the appropriate mechanism for them to be involved. And I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the people who doom scroll instead of doing something else, right? And look, if you're just doom scrolling, you're just doom scrolling. If you're doing something constructive,
You know who you are.
yeah, if you're doing something super constructive on a platform, like making makeup videos and becoming,
Parodies.
yeah,
A question,
like that's real.
question about that for a moment, and then I will go with this pose. Is it the feature of the Get Ready With Me video, the true ones? This and Besties, these are true features, or is it you and Catherine who came up with it?
This is a thing that people,
Yeah, it's a thing.
that the girlies do. They end by going, and I want to be like a 21-year-old girl. That's my aspiration in these videos. And so I adopted the pose. Yeah, no, it's a thing.
But yeah, it is.
And besties, I think nobody says it anymore, but it's like, so when I write in slang, I sort of try to write in like 5 years ago's slang, because the persona of the Get Ready With Me video witness is somebody who thinks it's kind of inspired by Scott Shapiro, somebody who thinks he's really hip with the lingo, but is actually like 5 years behind. So like, I used cringe, even though apparently nobody says cringe anymore.
No, people say cringe. My kids say cringe.
Do they?
Oh, well, okay, maybe not. Maybe they're
Parents
saying
are so cringe.
Maybe they're saying it to make fun of me.
I think they don't say it to each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cringe is cringe.
So yeah, I'm trying to use language and gestures that are like really 3 years ago, but use them with the assumption that I'm really hip to be using them.
That's great. I'm gonna leave, but keep on the good work. Keep on doing keep on doing one. I actually, Holly, before you talked about it, I really like every day I saw your post, I was like, this is really a great way of putting it. So
I grew up the child of missionaries who were constantly broadcasting their good deeds, so I kind of have a hatred of doing that. But I just thought, I told myself, and I'm telling others, like, in this moment, we're trying to build a mass movement, so you have to share.
Hey,
You
the
have to
thing
share.
about virtue signaling is that it's better than vice signaling.
That is true.
And like so many people are out there flaunting their vices and asking to be like starting with you, JD Vance, they're out there trying to, show everybody what raging assholes they
Yeah.
are.
And they're
And
doing a very good job.
they're doing a really good job. And I think like people like actually displaying themselves being good people, I'm for it. So like when people say, "Hey, stop the virtue signal," I'm like, "Why?" Like I
Well,
like,
I see
if
the
I
point. Believe me, I see the point. But in this moment, I don't think it's the time to be bashful.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
So
don't be bashful about the things that you're doing that may give other people good ideas,
that's
that
right.
that
That's
may
right.
that may make other people feel like, hey, my small contribution is valuable. If I can raise $600 for Ukraine by doing some painting, that's great. But I'm not good at painting, but I can do this, right? Like
You
the
can actually do this. In fact, I'm gonna have like a party where everybody, because there's an like this just applying the or cutting up the fabric. There's a lot of like grunt labor to this that anybody could do, and so I may have you do this, Ben.
Okay, so there's an important question in the chat, which is,
Okay.
does wearing "I stand with Ukraine" or "resist" t-shirts count? And what I would say is, wearing shirts in and of itself is a great thing to do because
Yeah.
you're walking down the street and people are seeing it. And the more people,
Your body, which people probably don't want to see.
yeah, the more people
Shirt's a good idea.
definitely wear shirts. If you are um, wearing a shirt while doing something else, that is even better. And but look, I wear a dog shirt every day. Far be it from me to say that sparking a fashion revolution is not a real thing. So look, I'm not going to tell you what counts and what doesn't count. I'm just going to tell you that Holly is right, and reaching out into the community and doing something constructive every day is what we should all be aspiring to do. Okay, next agenda item, Holly.
Okay, so this is a bit of a mood shift, unfortunately, because so South Sudan's about to implode, is the bottom line.
Well, that's a little bit more than a mood shift. That's kind
Yeah,
of like a subject matter shift.
yeah. So that's like a whole show we could do, but just the quick version is I think it's been going downhill for a number of years, and this is South Sudan. Sudan has already imploded, just to be clear. This is South Sudan, a whole separate country, a whole nother failed state.
Wait,
And
we need a transition noise because we're having a transition. And fortunately, I have a transition here called Transition 2.
Oh,
Here it is. Oh, whoops, it doesn't work.
oh, well, that was anticlimactic.
Yeah, it didn't work.
Well, anyway, regardless of whether there's a transition noise, South Sudan is imploding, and it's been doing badly for a while. Actually,
That was the
good.
transition noise, yeah.
All right. It's actually never been doing well, but I think the immediate precipitating factors here are the war in Sudan cut off the oil supply, did major disruption of oil, which is like 90% of their revenue. That's been and then the whole, speaking of patrimonialism, Jonathan Rausch, South Sudan, Salva Kiir, the whole state is a patrimonial state. And so the oil revenue and any other revenue is used to prop up the regime of Salva Kiir and pay off all his buddies and try to keep all of the different militias at bay. So when the oil revenues cut off, that has political implications. It's also one of the most aid dependent states. I think it's probably like 10% of GDP. So with US aid and the aid system's serious disruption, that's probably been a precipitating factor. So, and then more weapons and militiamen and whatever coming back from Sudan is another factor. Refugees competing for scarce resources is another factor. So anyway, there was major violence this week and there's always violence in South Sudan, but there was pretty large scale violence in Upper Nile, um, between, and this is sort of the traditional enemies, Salva Kiir, the president, and then one of the vice presidents, Riek Machar, who've hated each other for decades now. So it's sort of their loyalists that clashed. And then what I saw today, which is very alarming, is Uganda has actually sent troops into Juba, and the U.S. Embassy has evacuated their folks. So that means that the
And
violence,
when the U.S. Embassy evacuates, do we know that's because of the situation in South Sudan rather than say that the State Department is dismantling itself?
oh no, this is clearly in response. I mean, this has happened twice before, and since 2011 when South Sudan started. They've had to evacuate the embassy, and they're always on, like, everybody, there's no it's on an unaccompanied post, so the officers live in a compound. I've been there. It's very fun, actually. They have a nice like cafeteria. The chef is very good there, actually. So everybody's co-located, and then the embassy is very close by to make it easy to evacuate. So I don't know if it's I don't know if it's probably partial evacuation. So that indicates to me that the violence, which is a problem all over the country, that they're worried about Juba itself imploding. And Juba basically is South Sudan. There's not much state presence outside the capital. And so, yeah, we'll see. Salva Kiir, he's been in power since the beginning, and
Right,
he's
since
elderly
independence.
and not in good health and not a good person. And so we will see what happens, but it's something that it's just a matter of time, honestly, that this whole thing goes up in flames. And
Well, that's cheerful.
yeah,
Anything people can do to, I mean, it's not like
it would be
we
nice
have
if we
much,
had US aid.
right. It would help if we
Yeah, that
had,
would be a nice thing. But yeah, no, I guess advocate for foreign aid. I don't know.
right. All right.
I mean, support. So obviously, the UN has two peacekeeping missions there. So they're still there. Support the UN, World Food Program. These organizations are still there. Doctors Without Borders. Um, yeah. And
All
just, I
right.
don't know, to me, there's something about just remembering these are people that live in these places, and learning a bit about it and actually holding some space. There's, to me, I don't know if it does any good per se, but it's a show of respect just to pay any attention for these people.
Absolutely. Um, it is amazing how how little time people spent thinking about South Sudan, about the DRC, about Syria over a long period of time, relative to things like Ukraine, um,
Which we
Israel,
love, Ukraine.
Israel, Palestine. No, no. I have no criticism of anybody who spent a lot of time on Ukraine.
Well, I
Lord
think
knows I did and am. But it is remarkable how there are comparable sufferings or greater sufferings in other places that are really invisible.
well, I think the thing about Ukraine contrasting with some of these other crises is that Ukraine is a solvable problem. Russia needs to get out. And then Ukraine will probably be fine versus like South Sudan. There's no good guys, bad guy, like what is the solution to the problem?
Yeah, and the other difference, of course, is that these are internal conflicts, and obviously in Sudan you have some external uh, propagation, but by and large these are um, long-running internal conflicts, and they don't involve, the foundations of the world order, which
Right,
is,
absolutely.
UN Charter 2.4, right? Like you don't Article 2, like you just don't have the same um uh you just don't have the same, like, can one state invade another kind of questions here. That said, um it's a it's a huge number of people. And, we should remember that it's happening all the time. And by the way, we shouldn't be dismantling USAID right at the time when it would be maximally useful in situations like this, if only to make sure people are fed.
Yeah.
All right, it is 9 o'clock, which means we are ending. We will be back tomorrow. I will be at an airport because I have to go to Boston for the day. And then
Do one thing, guys. One thing.
one thing. And if you need something to do, call Holly. She's got a lot of this painting stuff to do, and she can send you glue and
Send me bits of yellow. I'm really low on yellow fabric, particularly with graphic designs.
Yeah.
I prefer African fabric, but honestly, at this point, I'll take anything.
there you go. See you tomorrow.